So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our February monthly construction and traffic impacts webinar. My name is Wendy Thompson and I'm part of the Streetcar team. My role is to make sure everyone that lives, works, or travels in the streetcar corridor has information on upcoming work that may impact you and that you have someone to reach out to with questions or concerns. I'd like to introduce you to the people who will be sharing information and answering your questions today. First, we have Steve Jensen, Deputy Chief of Staff for Economic Development in the Mayor's Office and Omaha Streetcar Authority Board Member. We have Megan Welter, MUD Customer Engagement Manager. Steve Rue, Omaha Public Works Department, Capital Construction and Street Maintenance Engineer. And Mike True, Omaha Public Works Department, Streetcar Project Manager. So now I'd like to turn it over to Steve Jensen.
So today we will be going over the construction schedule. We will also talk about MUD's gas relocation work. You've probably seen in the news the closing of the Harney Street Bridge and the work that's going to happen there. So we'll also talk about the I-480 bridges. We'll look at the West Utility package, the work that is going on now in Midtown Crossing. We'll also talk about the vehicle maintenance facility and construction communications. And finally, we'll spend some time answering your questions. So first, the schedule overview. Dee, if you could change that. Okay. So Mecca Lot A utilities, that started in the late fall. Construction crews will complete that utility work soon and finish the paving. There will be a new entrance into Lot A, which is the parking lot, surface parking lot south of the Arena Convention Center. Landscaping on Lot A will happen in the spring. I mentioned the Utilities West package going from Turner Boulevard to 40th Street. Work is underway, as I said. We'll talk about that in detail on the call. The interstate bridges work began this month. Again, we'll cover that in more detail on the call. Vehicle maintenance facility, Sampson Construction, has been selected and their contract approved. The work will begin this month and completed in January of 27. Utilities package number 2, or Utilities East, that work will be put out to bid in the spring, with work to begin in June and completed in December of 26. Turner Boulevard sewer improvements, work will also be put out to bid later in the spring. The work on that stretch is scheduled to run from 25 to 26. We'll have more detail on that package as we get further along in putting together the bid package. And then finally, the mainline construction work will begin in early 26 and run into 2027. MUD's gas relocation work is ongoing throughout this period. And again, Megan will talk about some of that work that's going on in a minute. And then we have ongoing communications and fiber utility work that also will continue through the period and be coordinated with the other work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan to discuss the MUD work. So Megan.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So MUD completed a gas shutdown last night in the Blackstone area to move every one of those customers over to the new main. So crews are working on final connections and abandoning that old main. The customers in the area will continue to see some final excavation work and cleanup, which will take place for the next week. Once that work is done, we will turn the paving cuts over to the city of Omaha. So for 10th and Capitol, the gas shutdown that occurred in January for Part 1A went very well. We had the majority of our customers up within about 3 hours. Traffic control changed on January 27th, which was the start of Part 1B. On the next slide, we're showing the lanes that are open and closed in the 10th and Capitol area. It is anticipated the gas main installation and service work down the middle of 10th Street from Capitol Avenue to just south of Dodge will take approximately 1 more week. There will be future temporary gas service interruptions, but dates and affected customers will be determined as the work progresses. And then finally, as soon as we are done in the Blackstone area, we are actually going to be moving over to phase 6 in Harney and from 10th to 19th Street. So we will likely start this work next week, somewhere probably around the 10th or the 11th of February. And we're going to start down on 10th and Harney, and we are going to work our way west. Communications are currently being sent to all the affected customers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Megan. Now we'll turn it over to Steve Root to discuss the I-480 bridges, West Utility work, and the vehicle maintenance facility. Steve?
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so here we're looking at our overview of kind of where we're kind of the area that we're still working in right now. So the first bridge that's going to come down here shortly, the one we're going to talk about today, is the Harney Street Bridge. Off to the west of that, Park Avenue, we've been working there for a month on some power duct bank work that's been going on. It was fully closed for a stretch for the last few weeks. As of right now, there's a lane open, so that's great. And in the northwest corner of the picture, you can see Turner Park, and we'll touch on the Utilities West package when we get there. So to discuss kind of, I think what's maybe more the hot topic for this webinar this week, the Harney Street Bridge is closed. It's been closed since Monday. So for this project here, the work that's been completed so far, like I said, we got the power duct bank work done, or is being done on Park Avenue. Again, that's back open, at least one lane of traffic right now, so that's great. As we prepare for the actual demolition of the bridge, which is coming up, there will be some isolated work on 28th and 29th Streets around that Harney Street Bridge, as we isolate the MED water mains that are in the area, and kind of get that all prepared for the work that's going to happen to demo that bridge so we don't damage any of that infrastructure. And so the demolition of the bridge is scheduled for the weekend of February 14th through the 17th. The bridge is currently closed. So if that is a travel route that you're used to taking, if you go that way typically, you're not going to be able to get through there. If you do find yourself down there, please just follow the detours. I know the bridge is still up for one more week, but they are working in the area. Please be safe, follow the detours. We don't want anybody, construction workers or anybody else, to get hurt down there. So just follow the signs if you find yourself down there, and find a new route for the future. So like I said, bridge demolition scheduled for the weekend of the 14th through the 17th. So that will start Friday the 14th at 9 p.m. So at that point, I-480 will be closed, northbound and southbound. Here we're showing a suggested detour route for northbound travelers. You'll have to find a similar route southbound. There's signs posted currently. There will be the overhead message boards from NDOT. There'll be a lot of signage out there. That will be closed through the weekend. As that weekend goes through, Hawkins will be working 24/7 through the weekend to get the bridge demolished. So that work will continue until 6 a.m. on Monday the 17th. So Monday the 17th at 6, we anticipate I-480 being open again, and traffic should resume as normal. So if you're down there that weekend, 2 weekends from now, just be aware 480 is closed. If you're going to the Supernovas game on Sunday, find a route that doesn't go that way, or maybe take a different way. But that will be completely closed for the entire weekend as Hawkins takes the bridge down. We had some questions about what kind of the finished product of the bridge would look like. So here we have a couple of renderings of where we're going to end up here. So we're showing our streetcar lane of traffic, and then our turn lanes. So it should be noted the streetcar lane is an active lane of traffic. So once construction's all complete, we're not down to one lane of traffic. Both lanes will provide as travel lanes for passenger vehicles or other vehicles and the like, and the streetcar will operate within the flow of traffic. So you'll have those 2 lanes throughout. And then here we're just kind of showing the other space. As we go over to Farnham, same setup, right? We're still 2 lanes of active traffic where the streetcar is. The one item of note here is we are providing space when we go to construct this bridge, which is in the future, roughly 9-10 months from now, before we get to this bridge. We are providing space on this bridge for the future bike trail project. More details on that to be determined in the future, but the bridge is being built to accommodate that. So that's where we're at with the bridges. So again, that'll be closed 480 will be closed the weekend of the 14th through the 17th. So over to the Utilities West package, we are generally on schedule from where we said we were in the last webinar. So they're continuing to work from Turner Boulevard to 33rd Street. Farnham is one-way traffic throughout. At this time, all the parking in that area has been taken up, so all those spaces are closed. I know we kind of phased that in as Hawkins was getting rolling. As it stands now, there's work in all those areas, safety concerns, etc. So please utilize the parking garages in and around if you're going to those businesses. So the parking is closed. Pedestrian access throughout will remain has remained and will remain how we showed initially. So you will still have access to all of those businesses throughout. So you can utilize the sidewalk on the north side that runs along the doors of those businesses. On the south side, we still have all that access there. Please, again, just follow the signage, the detours, the fencing, anything that's out there. That's for construction worker safety, for your safety, for traffic safety. So just kind of make sure you're kind of following those guidelines as you're utilizing that area. So where we're at with this work, again, they're continuing that work through there. A couple of the places that we need to jump to as part of this phase, 38th Street, each side of Farnham, week of February 10th will be closed on each side of Farnham, full closure as they do some exploratory work of the water mains that are in the area. So the garage access for the garage there on between 37th and 38th, Farnham and Harney, you will need to access that garage off of Harney, off of 30 or off of 38 there, coming off of Harney. So either access point that you choose won't be available through Farnham. You'll need to utilize Harney and enter through one of those two accesses. We believe that work might take as long as 2 weeks. Hopefully it's maybe a little shorter, to be honest with you. But just for those weeks, remember that that's how we're going to access that garage there. Here we're kind of showing our future full closure that is anticipated on Farnham. In the last webinar, we discussed the phasing of these full closures. In order to kind of accommodate some other work that's happened, the phasing is going to flip. So the first full closure, which is going to occur in late February, will now be between 36th and 37th. So originally it was between 33rd and 34th. We're going to do this full closure first. We anticipate this being about 2 working days worth of work, or 2 full working weeks worth of work, to get this full closure resolved. So this full closure will happen first in late February. Immediately following this, we will return back to the other March full closure that we discussed last month, and that full closure will occur then. So we're going to kind of do those back to back. Originally, they were just supposed to go 1-2, and in this case, we're going to go 2-1. So it's the same duration, same scope of work, just the order that we've kind of been pushed to taking has been different. And other than that, same traffic flow. And actually here, I believe Mike True is going to update us on where we are with the VMF.
Thanks, Steve. So the vehicle maintenance facility is down underneath the I-480 bridges, as you can see on the slide here. This is a rendering of what we hope it looks like. The vegetation is a little subject of how it'll grow in. Currently now, this used to be part of Mecca Lot A. That is currently being tore up to create a new entrance and route some of the existing utilities off 8th Street and Riverfront Drive to where the new facility will begin. That's its own separate contract. That's wrapping up, we're hoping, sometime in March. And actual work on the vehicle maintenance facility will begin around the beginning of April. This will be where all the cars are housed at overnight. This is where they will actually be repaired. And this is also where OSA will be headquartered as we build out that entity. There you go.
Thanks, Mike. So we're now going to talk a little bit about some of the business support actions that we're taking in the corridor. We've discussed some of these before, but just to kind of reiterate, first, there's the overall communications that take place, construction updates on the OSA website. OmahaStreetcar.org is the location of that. That website has an interactive map that shows up-to-date information about what's happening in each neighborhood, frequently asked questions, weekly construction update. Email newsletters are also sent out if you want to sign up for those. We have these monthly webinars. And then, of course, Wendy, who will follow me here, she is also available on a daily basis if you have questions. We're also concerned about traffic accessibility. And that's why we've limited this work in the West Utility Package to these 3 and 4 block segments for about a 3 to 4 month period for each segment. And also so that we can keep at least that 1 lane westbound traffic open through even the construction zones throughout this whole process. Also, we've made sure that we keep the sidewalks open so that the people can access the businesses. We also are working to make sure that delivery access and coordination happens. Outside of the construction zones, we will maintain all of the travel lanes when that work is not occurring in that area. And then we'll also maintain two-way traffic. Now, right now, we're still closing up some of that gas utility work in the Blackstone area. And so once that's done, we'll have that open to two-way traffic. We also have directional signage for traffic that has Steve mentioned on his part of the call. And Public Works has also installed, I think, about 50 reflective metal pedestrian signs along the route. When it comes to parking, we've worked to maintain access to all of the off-street parking in the construction zones, maintain unobstructed on-street parking outside of the construction zones. The city's parking division is continuing to work on what they call their Parking Partners program to open area parking for nights and weekend use from businesses and that are using it during the day, offices and so forth using it during the day. We can also now announce that the city will be constructing a temporary parking lot on the northeast corner of 40th and Harney that will be available for parking during the construction of the streetcar. We are also working to allow 1 hour of free parking in the new Blackstone garage. We're not quite ready to set that up yet. We will have a kind of grand reopening of that garage in March, and we will begin that process at that time. So we'll have more information about that on the next call. We'll continue that through this year, evaluate that, the results of that, and then look to continue it if it is something that is helpful going into 26 for the construction that occurs during that time. When it comes to business promotion, we've added business advertising and support signage. Business wayfinding signage has been installed in Blackstone and Midtown Crossing and will be installed in other areas throughout downtown and Capitol District and so forth. These are sidewalk signs. They've been placed, and so you can see those as you move through the corridor. We also have put out banners and storefront window posters throughout the route, again, encouraging people to take advantage of the businesses that are in the corridor. OSA's streetcar website also includes business promotion and advertising. There are some other things we're working on. We're not quite ready to announce them yet, but there will be more coming in the future. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Wendy to talk about communications.
Thank you, Steve. If you are new to this webinar format, we have begun holding a webinar the first Wednesday of the month at noon. We understand this time doesn't work for everyone, which is why we record them and post them on our website. You will need to register each time to receive the new link. If you've registered for this webinar or a past one before, we'll send you a reminder via email before the next webinar to remind you to sign up. Even if you can't attend, fill out the form and submit any construction and traffic questions you have so we can address them on the next webinar. Next month, we plan to do a deep dive into the upcoming work on the vehicle maintenance facility and what you can expect as work starts there. This is an incredibly complex project, so we're trying to make information as accessible as possible for you, including, like Steve mentioned, sending a weekly email that highlights the work areas and provides pertinent project information as seen in the example. Please sign up to receive these updates on our website. We have also developed a GIS-driven map to allow you to drill down to the neighborhood that you live or work in to find out about how you will be impacted. It is also updated frequently. And finally, if you have immediate concerns or would like more information from the project team, please contact me by phone or email as shown on the screen. So now let's begin the Q&A session with questions that were sent in, but we haven't answered yet as we went through our presentation. Please continue to add questions about construction and traffic impacts to the Q&A box in your screen. So Steve Rue, let's start with the first question. Sorry, let me switch things. So our first question, Steve, is whether there's any temporary bike lanes for the area.
So the bike lane project that was originally in place was a pilot project. It was in place for its design length of time. The pilot project has currently come to an end. In the future, as we kind of discussed on the bridges, and I know has been discussed in other facets, there will be another bike lane project. But for now, we are not designating any bike routes or making temporary bike trails. That'll just be something to look forward to when the new project is put in place in the future.
Our next question is about the timing of the Harney Street and 15th, 16th Street road closures, if there will be any.
Let me hold on. I got a little. So I do know that we have 3 pieces of work remaining in that area. Currently, so we have let's see, an MUD line, a utility, and something else that needs to be moved there. It doesn't look like we have dates for those yet. I believe the main concern is with OPA right there, and obviously any other local businesses. So we do have Mark Poland, who's on this call somewhere, I believe, is working with those entities when that work is going to be set up. And when that happens, we can announce it here. And as we would typically do, we'll make sure that all those local businesses are notified as far in advance as we have, and kind of give them the rundown of what kind of closures to expect, what kind of duration, things like that. But as it stands right now, I do know there is work. We do not have set dates for it.
Thank you. So back to you. We got a lot of traffic and construction questions this time. So how will sidewalk closures be announced, and are the sidewalks currently in good condition for all users, including those with mobility aids?
Yep. So sidewalk closures are announced the same way we do for any other project. So we post pedestrian traffic routes. If you are actually walking on the routes, obviously we'd have our typical barricades set up, showing you what the detours are. For each of these projects, we have taken the pedestrian detour routes that have already been provided to us. So specifically for the bridge, through its lifespan, there was 6 different pedestrian detour phases. Prior to the project starting, we have a sidewalk inspection division. They went out, walked those, made any repairs, adjustments, anything we could do to make sure that those were accessible, didn't have trip hazards, were generally ADA compliant. Anything that needs to be done permanently can be picked up. There will be a subsequent project after the streetcar is over, and we will pick those up permanently. But I'm confident right now that the pedestrian access routes that are out there that are being provided, such as on the slide that I had in this, and as we continue to move through those phases, those have been inspected. The repairs or adjustments have been made, and we believe that they're safe.
Thank you. I'm not sure if Steve Rue wants to answer this one, or Mike True, since it's near the VMF area. We got some questions about how traffic is on 8th Street between Farnham and Capitol, and does the city plan any adjustments to the traffic plan both during construction or post-construction once the streetcar is opening?
So I can go ahead and answer that. As part of the overall streetcar design, there was a traffic study portion of that. What's been incorporated thus far is deemed safe and acceptable by traffic. We are continuing to work with, as there's other developers down in this area and future development comes in. The intent is to continue to monitor it to see how traffic behaves and what its real impact will be, what kind of traffic will actually be driving past it. We don't have necessarily any direct change of plans, widening streets or anything like that at this time, but we are going to continue to monitor it because we do realize that this area has gone from, just adjacent to a park to we do anticipate higher traffic loads and we'll need to keep apprised of what's going on.
Thank you. Steve Jensen, we received a question about the project financing and whether there was a study done on the impact on renters or whether there's any requirement or incentive for landowners to have affordable units or buildings.
Yeah, so I think one of the misconceptions about the streetcar is that it will result in just expensive housing throughout the corridor. That's really not the case. We are anticipating a big increase in the value of property in the corridor, but for a number of reasons. First, by reducing the amount of parking that is needed for each project, because the streetcar allows us to tap and utilize existing parking that is vacant. We won't need to build as much parking. That means that we will use less of the land in that corridor for parking, and that allows us to have more development on those properties that otherwise would be tied up in parking. And so that's a big increase in the value that we anticipate seeing in the corridor that will help pay for the streetcar. The other thing I think that's important to understand is that when developers don't have to devote as much land that they have to parking or devote as much money as they would otherwise spend on parking, it allows them to build more units. And so by building more units, they are able to keep their price per unit lower because they don't have that added parking expense. And so again, you get more units and more units at a more reasonable price. Now, we do anticipate that there will be some increases in those rents, but we are looking at some of the projects that have been approved up to this point, and right at the moment, we have hundreds of units of housing that are in the process of coming online that are rents are below the price point that someone making less than the median income for the metropolitan area could afford. So we are seeing what would generally be considered affordable housing for workforce people in the workforce income range, again, less than the median income for those units. In addition to that, we have had projects come in, again, a few dozen units so far that will be in a price point that is lower than that in a much lower income range. And those are units that are taking advantage of things like low income housing tax credits and so forth. In the case of those projects, the rents are held down because of that incentive that is being used. At the same time, because the rents are being held down, there is no bump in value. The only thing the streetcar is really taking is when there is a bump. And since there's no bump in value there's no revenue from those projects going toward the streetcar. And lastly, as we've said throughout this project, and when the plan that was approved by the city council that allowed us to move forward to the streetcar, that plan was called the Housing and Mobility Redevelopment Plan. The reason it was called Housing and Mobility was that we knew that we would generate more revenue in the corridor than we needed only to build the streetcar. We are now, as we've talked, we have projects that are under construction, so we know what the cost of those projects are, and we're getting very close to being able to nail down the final cost, total cost of the project. We also now have 3 years worth of development that's occurred in the corridor. That development is running far ahead of what was projected. We had a study that was done when we started the project that projected $2 billion worth of development in the corridor over a 15-year period. We're already at 1.5 billion in development happening in the corridor. So we are actually very comfortable that we are going to see, rather than 2 billion, almost $4 billion worth of development in the corridor. That means we will have far more revenue than is needed just to build the streetcar. And so now we will have what we'll soon be able to put a dollar amount to, but we will have probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars that will be available to build bikeways and do affordable housing in the core. And once we are able to really come up with those numbers, we'll be able to announce that. But that money then will go to help reduce the cost of some of the housing that gets built, both in the streetcar corridor and throughout the urban core area, from Cumming Street down to Leavenworth, from the river to about 48th. And as I said, we think we will be able to put a number to that soon, but it will be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a lot of work being done to make sure that we have ultimately thousands of units of housing that would be available for people who make less than the median income in the region, and then also make far less and would fall into what is otherwise considered affordable income ranges. So I think we have a lot of good news there. At the end of the day, we will have literally thousands of units of apartments that are at or below market rent rates in this urban core area because of the streetcar.
Thank you. I see we have a few questions that have come in, but I'm going to continue with the pre-submitted ones here. Steve Rue, are there any expected lane restrictions or any impacts to driving downtown on Dodge?
Currently directly related to the streetcar, no. All the work that we have identified is on that Farnham-Harney corridor. So I'm obviously never going to promise that there's never going to be a lane restriction on Dodge Street if we have to do maintenance or something, but related to this project, no.
Thank you. And then we got a question about access to parking lots. Can you kind of talk about the expectations of when we need to maybe block off a parking lot or access to a parking garage? Steve Rue?
Yeah, so I want to say we try very hard to limit any time that we're going to deny access to a parking garage from any direction. So, especially now as we are taking up valuable parking spaces through this corridor, we really don't also want to deny access to the garages or to other lots. With that being said, as the project moves through, if we are doing work directly in front of those approaches, those drives, if turning widths are not wide enough to accommodate most traffic, if there's a safety concern, things like that, that'll be times that you're going to see those restrictions go up. So I think a good example of kind of how we're trying to mitigate this is, we have that work on 38th and Farnham that we talked about in the slides, but we are doing everything we can then to make sure that those other two accesses to that same garage are open on the backside off of Harney. Most of the project has kind of been designed and phased out with that in mind as we go, so that we aren't taking out large stretches of access and parking. And we are trying our best to maintain that as we continue to go through the project. We want to make sure that the places that you're trying to get into this area during construction are accessible.
Thank you. Steve Jensen, we got a question about, will children K through 12 be able to ride free? Will older adults pay half price? And will there be charging ports available on the streetcar and at all stops? So kind of matching what the regional metropolitan area transit bus has. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Sorry about that. The streetcar will be free to ride for everyone. So there is no charge to ride the streetcar. I don't know the answer to the charging ports on the streetcar and at the stops, so we'll have to take a look at that. Maybe we can answer that on the website. But as far as charging, there's no charge to ride the streetcar.
Thank you. Megan, we got a question about why MUD has to move gas and water lines along the route. Can you explain that?
Yes, I sure can. So the reasons that we have to relocate water mains and gas mains under the streetcar is that there is possible corrosion from the stray current from the streetcar. So special materials need to be used to protect the water mains. There is ongoing maintenance that needs to happen on the water main. So we do need to be able to get access to it and create points around the streetcar tracks to facilitate that maintenance for actually both the gas and the water mains. So we do want modern materials to try to assure the smooth operations of the streetcar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Steve Jensen, I think someone missed it when you talked about business promotional materials, specifically the signs and easels. How can someone obtain those?
Megan, I think if they were to just contact you, I think we'd be able to connect them with the people who produce those and see if we can't get those to them. So unless you have a more direct route to get that information, I think maybe we'll start by having them contact you. And I think your contact information is on the final slide or one of these slides. So let's start there and we'll make sure we get what they need.
Yes. Yes, you can reach out to me. My email and my phone number is on the website if you missed it in this presentation, or you can go back and watch it again to get that. Thank you. And then our final question, unless anyone else has additional questions, is at 10th and Capitol, there's been some unique traffic flows. Could we get some more signage there to restrict turns and through traffic so that it's less confusing to drivers? I guess that's for Steve Rue.
Yeah, we can go look at that. I know we have addressed signage through that area a number of times as we've moved through OPPD doing work, MUD doing work, other utilities doing work. So I would say that I know city traffic is out there looking at that specific intersection quite often. But I would be happy to pass that along to them and we can go out and make sure the signage is appropriate and safe.
Thank you. So that looks like that's all of our questions for today. So thank you for all of the great questions. For questions we were not able to address in this call, like Steve mentioned, we will be following up with people with your registration email, and we'll get you an answer for those that we didn't answer directly. So thank you for attending, and we hope you join us next month to learn more about upcoming construction and traffic impacts.